everyone for coming. And so welcome to the Amplify Youth Voices Alaska workshop, #written word with Denali Tshibaka. It's an honor to bring you high quality coping skills and connection for Alaskan youth. We'll be broadcasting the session on YouTube and live recording, so please consider renaming yourself or keeping your cameras off for privacy. And if you do, for Evangeline that just popped in, for anyone else that just popped in, you can watch this live on YouTube. And we have, at this point, disabled comments, but I can enable comments if you want to participate through there. And okay. This project is made possible by the CARES Act funding through Spirit of Youth and the Department of Education and Early Development, with generous support from the Alaska State Council on the Arts, Center for Safe Alaskans, the Anchorage Youth Development Coalition, and the Youth Alliance for Healthier Alaska, and the First Alaskans Institute. Pardon that plane in the background there. If you are navigating Zoom for the first time, we will be utilizing cameras off function, but using the chat feature. For the best learning environment, please limit your distractions for our artist presenter and for our workshop participants. Keeping yourselves on mute unless you're asking a question of the presenter or answering a question from the artist. Are there any other agreements or rules that our participants would like to incorporate into our learning today? Okay, hearing none. So it's been an incredibly challenging year, and to every part of how we live, work, learn, and play, we often use art to cope and to heal and to process what we're feeling. Please consider checking out these resources on this slide to access basic needs, mental health services, and crisis intervention. Welcome to Amplify Youth Voices Alaska workshop with Denali Tshibaka. Part of our calls to action today are that we are going to encourage you to email your art and your creations to our public informations team at the state of Alaska, DHSS-PIT@alaska.gov. The public informations team will respond to you within 24 to 48 hours. Accepted art will be posted on the website weekly, and your art may be used in social media posts to encourage participation. Please tell your friends. Find us on Instagram at AK_youth_voice or on Facebook at AK Alaska's Youth Voice. So now I'm going to introduce the lovely and talented Denali Tshibaka. And Denali is a junior at the Alaska Native Science and Engineering program. She's been writing poetry for more than 7 years and hopes to get some of her work published very soon. As an artist, she hopes to spread impactful messages of encouragement and often is inspired to write and enjoys writing songs and poems about her faith. She also writes poetry about real-life issues like human trafficking, abuse, and suicide. Denali uses written word to process life stuff and emotions. And for now, I'm going to hand it over to Denali to talk a little bit more about her passion and her craft.
Thanks, Jenny. And thank you for everyone that's here and or watching online. So to start, I would like to talk just a little bit about free verse, kind of what it is, what the rules are, and then my personal process for how I write. So to start, free verse poetry is my specialty. It's the one that I prefer to use. It's the one I've worked with the most. And it's my favorite because there are no rules. There's no rhyme, meter, or structure. You can just write what you want. You can adapt it to music if you want to. It's just all in all really cool, ambiguous, adaptable kind of style. However, I would encourage everyone to find which genre you like best, whether that's haikus or structured and strict rhyming. Find what you work with best, find what you like the best, and then build comfort in it. And when you're comfortable enough in it, or you think you've become proficient or advanced in it, try a different style. So one of the first things I would suggest when you're writing is to recognize your tone. Do you want a dark and gloomy tone like Edgar Allan Poe, or do you want something more light and fun? Recognize what your topic is, how you want it to sound, and how you want your audience to feel when you're writing about it or talking about it. I would also say find a way of writing that works for you. Everyone has different processes. Everyone has different ways that they view the world, process it, and write it down. So, for example, Margaret Atwood, she's the author of The Handmaid's Tale. In her masterclass, she said that when she writes, she always takes inspiration from real events. Everything she said that occurred in her books happened at some point in reality. That's kind of what she uses to write. James Patterson, also in his masterclass, said that his goal is to make his second draft look like it was the original copy. So that's his process. He wants to make perfection happen in 2 attempts. And Margaret Atwood draws on real life experience or events for inspiration. So I personally follow a structure I call IRIS, which goes inspiration, find something that inspires you, whether it's a place, person, or feeling. Reflect, take some time to reflect on what or how your topic makes you feel, see, hear, etc. Initiate, which means initiate the creation of your poem. It doesn't need to be perfect on the first try. In fact, it may take several drafts before you're happy with it. Don't try to force out a masterpiece on your first attempt. It makes it harder to write your poem. And then lastly is satisfaction. Go back and review your product. Feel free to add or take out anything as you see fit. When you're satisfied with how it's turned out, it's finished. I would also say when you're either in the initiation or satisfaction phase, have a friend, a family member, a mentor, have someone look at your poem and say, I think this is kind of a weak line, or I would use this as a synonym instead of this. I do that quite frequently, and it usually makes my poem a lot better as a result. But again, this is a process that's taken me about 7 years to develop, and I didn't come up with an acronym or a name for it until a couple weeks ago. So I would say find a process that works for you, whether that's just walking outside and seeing something and then just writing down a bunch of things that pop in your head when you see that object. That could be your process. All processes are different. That's pretty much it. I would say if you get stuck, which happens a lot, writer's block is a very real thing. Focus on your breathing, fidget with something, listen to music, hum to yourself. Those are things that I do when I get stuck. So I'll often twirl a pen or a pencil in my non-dominant hand when I'm stuck with something, or I'll be listening to some of my favorite music artists in the background while I'm trying to write. This may not work for everyone because it's kind of distracting for some people when you're writing, but it personally works for me. So find some things that work for you and use them to help you process. So I also have a sample of a poem that I wrote. I call it Where Are the Words? Where are the words when I have feelings vocabulary can't describe? And when there is a tsunami about to start and I'm the ocean? Where are the words when I have feelings vocabulary can't describe? When there is an inspiring wind and I am a tree? So this poem has somewhat of a structure. Each of the stanzas start the same way, but there's not a rhyme. There's a lot of metaphor. There's not a lot of simile. There's not a lot of general structure. So I wouldn't exactly say this is free verse because it's not as fluid, but it's not strictly anything else either. So with all of that in mind, I have an activity for us to do if we're ready for that, Jenny. Cool. So I'm going to share my screen, and there's a sentence for us. Just a second. The sentence is, the mirror reflects my appearance, but my identity is mysterious. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on the whiteboard if I can. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice rewriting the sentence as a metaphor, as a simile, and lastly with synonyms. So you're not going to try to find a synonym for like each of the words, but when you're reading the sentence, basically whatever pops in your head would go under the synonym category. So first we're going to start with a simile, which is like or as. So this mirror is like, my appearance is like, my identity is as blank. That's how a simile works. So I'm going to mute my mic and I'll give 3 minutes to 5 minutes to come up with alternatives for the sentence. You can come up with as many or as little as you like, as long as they're similes. Alrighty, so Lillian or Eva, would either of you like to share what you came up with? So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. Sure. Let's see. So one of mine is the mirror reflects my appearance, but my identity is mysterious, like a wrapped, unboxed Christmas present. Like the ones when you can tell the form of what the present is, but you have no idea what exactly it is. Like, it's a spice grinder, but it could be like pepper or like cayenne. You have no idea. Or to change out for the first one, like a lake on a sunny day, the mirror reflects my appearance, but my identity is mysterious.
That was really good. Thank you. So I also came up with a different way to say the sentence as a simile. I changed it up a lot more, which is my style, but I also really like what you did, Eva, where you just added something at the beginning or at the end, kind of, you kept the meat and the essence of the sentence, but you also gave it a little more detail. You made it more flowery, which I really like. So my sentence was, this reflective glass is like a dark pond. I can only see the surface. So I think you had like the same thing where you were comparing it to water or something. So for this sentence, my process was basically I try to think of how mirror, reflection, identity, mysteriousness, what that connects to, how it makes me feel, what it reminds me of, that kind of thing. And using that, I was able to structure a sentence using a simile, which is using like or as. So when I was younger, I always got simile and metaphor mixed up. So we're going to do metaphor next. Metaphors use are or is. You are saying something is this, these things are that. It's much more straightforward, much less vague. So same sentence. Let's see what people come up for when you use metaphors. Okay, that was about 3 minutes. So would anybody like to share?
I'm not sure this is correct, but I said the mask is what separates me and my identity.
That's good. I like how you didn't use anything that people would use to connect to mirror. You kind of made that your own. And I really love that because that shows creativity and originality. So good job.
I'll do one, but you can tell me it's wrong. think it might be. Okay. My face is a mirror, reflecting the sunny days of my youth, eyes closed, the smiles I offered and tears I have posed, even though I'm not supposed to rhyme. It's a habit.
Oh, that was beautiful. I love that. It's very deep. I could tell you put a lot of thought into that, put a lot of personal experience, that kind of thing, even if you didn't name it specifically, just the overall general feel. So for mine, I said, this mirror is an untamed garden. The outside of the fence is seen while the inside lies neglected. So again, my style is usually more of, I like tearing the sentence apart and restructuring it as something as my own. While that's my style, other people may only want to change one word. Some people may want to write 4 stanzas onto this one sentence, and that's totally fine because we all have different styles. It's free verse. It leaves room for diversity and freedom of style and thought. So our last exercise, we're going to do synonyms. So for this one, you can choose mirror, appearance, mysterious, or identity. And we'll give you 3 minutes to come up with as many synonyms or connections that you have with those 4 words. So if you see the word mirror, I mean, you might think of smudge, and someone else might think of a window or a reflection. Those are all correct because they remind you of a mirror. So without further ado, let's give everyone 3 minutes, and you can come up with as many or as little synonyms as you like for as many or as little of those words. Alrighty, so I see some very good synonyms up here. Lillian, I'm a little curious, how did you connect mirror with moon?
I connected that kind of think about like dark sides of the moon and how like only partly of like what's really on the moon and like what the moon is, and the other side is pretty unknown. So that's how I connected it.
That's really good. I like that a lot. All right, I see your other synonyms in the chat: name, personality, memories for identity, ambiguous, unknown, cloudy for mysterious, surface, look, image for appearance. That's really good. Eva, do you have any you'd like to share?
Let's see. I pretty much put my 2 non-repetitive ones. Let's see, for mysterious, there was unknown, but I don't know if that was in the chat. Then yes. So pretty much repeats.
Deceptive portrayal and who I am are really good too. I like deceptive portrayal. It's really good. I did some as well. For mirrors, I had glass, reflection, shiny surface, window. Identity, I had me, original, unique, and valuable. Mysterious, I had miscellaneous, ambiguous, dark, dangerous, and hidden. Appearance, I had presence, surface, fake, and unreliable. So we all kind of had like the same thought pattern for all of these, but we also each came up with different kinds of words. Like Lillian connected mirror and moon, and she connected mysterious and cloudy. I never would have come up with that. In the same way, Eva, you may later think of words and be like, oh, that's what I could have said, that none of us would have thought of either. And some of us, like we all each had kind of like the same exact, I already said thought pattern. So Eva, you said deceptive portrayal. I said unreliable. So they're the same thing, but we verbalize them differently. That's another mark of your style and your process, is how it's unique and how it differs from other people. So speaking more of process, I want to talk a little bit more about it. I think that your process is definitely the most important part of writing your poems. It's not your vocabulary or how well you know the styles or how much of it you read. It's about how you think, work through it, and put it down. So I already mentioned iris. That's just me personally. That may not work for everybody. I've had teachers who have tried to help me write poetry by making me use diagrams that I just got lost in the diagram. My poetry lost its flavor, it lost the topic somewhere and all of the metaphors I had to include. It's really annoying when people try to force you to use a style that you're not good at using. So find your own style. And for your process, it's very, very important to be in tune with yourself and with what you're observing. So if I'm walking down the street and I see a fire hydrant, let's say, I need to be in tune with what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What does the fire hydrant remind me of? Maybe it reminds me of firefighters, obviously, or a dog. Maybe it reminds me of a movie I saw at some point. Different people are reminded or emotions are evoked by different things. So maybe someone has a memory of, I tripped over a fire hydrant when I was a kid and broke my arm. So when they see a fire hydrant, they hate it. Other people are like, it's just a fire hydrant, but I really hate it on my street corner. When you're writing, it's imperative that you know what you're thinking and how you're feeling, sensing at the time you see the object in question or your topic. Some things you may not even be able to see. So Jenny mentioned in the beginning, a lot of the things I write about are about human trafficking. I haven't really witnessed human trafficking personally, but I've been to human trafficking events and different training seminars. And when you go to those events and seminars, you hear different stories. And so I've taken careful note. I don't write it down, but I make sure to remember, how am I feeling in that moment? What did that story remind me of? What are the synonyms and antonyms, metaphors and similes I can think of? How can I write this down later? Those are the thoughts that you should be having. Now, I know I said everyone has different processes, but it's also very important that, like at the beginning, you follow that pattern. How are you feeling? What are you thinking of? What are your connections? That must be the same in everybody. How you verbalize it, record it, the style you write it in later, completely up to you. But that first original process and conception of that idea has to be that. Otherwise, you're going to lose your subject, you're going to lose your feeling, you're going to lose your senses somewhere in, I want to make this sound really good. I want to be the next Edgar Allan Poe, the next Robert Frost. Don't do that. I've tried that before. I've tried to sound super professional and cool, and I've totally lost all the flavor. I've had to scrap the poems, as opposed to when I just write about how I feel and then tweak things here and there later, I come up with incredible pieces of work. That's what I would recommend for you for your process. So in short, come up with your own way of writing things down. Find the style that works for you the most. Your original thought process should be the subject you are thinking of or witnessing and how it makes you feel and different connections it makes in your brain. That should always be the same, but how you write it down could be different. So with that, I know I just talked a lot and that was probably a lot of information. So does anyone have any questions?
I don't know if you're comfortable with this, but I was wondering if you could maybe read one of your poems.
Yeah, sure. So I did give a sample of Where Are the Words earlier, but I can read the whole thing. Okay. Where are the words? Where are the words when I have feelings vocabulary can't describe? When there is a tsunami about to start and I am the ocean? Where are the words when I have feelings vocabulary can't describe? When there is an inspiring wind and I am a tree? Where are the words when I have feelings vocabulary can't describe? When raindrops begin to fall over a dry land and I am the parched ground? Where are the words when I have feelings vocabulary can't describe? When the sun begins to rise after a grim night and I am a lonely star? Where are the words when I have feelings vocabulary can't describe? When snow begins to fall and I am a snowflake? Where are the words when I have to use metaphors to describe my moods and feelings to convey my meaning? Where are my words? So for that poem, I have to be honest, I was going through writer's block. That's kind of what my inspiration was for that. I was trying to write a poem and I couldn't think of anything, like I couldn't relate it to anything. I couldn't specify exactly what I was feeling, and that happens sometimes. And so I just got so mad. I wrote out a completely different poem, and by the time I was done with it, I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool, and completely forgot about the one I was struggling with. So maybe that's another thing you use to get over your writer's block is you're like, I hate this thing I'm working on. Let me try something else. And then, I don't know, maybe you end up creating a masterpiece and you're like, wow, I can't believe I was so worked up over that one thing because I couldn't do this or that with it. So that's happened to me plenty of times. I think that's about maybe like where 60% of my poems come from is I got so irritated with something else I was working on. I just made something else up and it works out pretty good. I would recommend compiling your poems. Now, I'm not saying you need a book this thick of every single little rhyme or thought you've had, but write, like as you're writing things down, maybe typing them out on your laptop or whatever, use a Microsoft or Google document and keep careful note of your poems and go back and edit them periodically. It doesn't have to be frequently. I think the last time I went back and edited some of my poems was 6 or 7 months ago. But do that. And then before you know it, you're going to have a ton of them and maybe you can get them published or something. And I would also recommend do not download them on your desktop. I did that and I lost like a whole collection that I had written because my laptop crashed and I couldn't get them back. So if you're going to write them down, notebooks are fine. If you're going to store them on a laptop, make sure it's something you can access from anywhere, like in a Google Doc, so you can access your email and get it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me, unless anyone has any other questions.
What first inspired you to start writing, or how did you know you were a writer?
I didn't really know at first. I had always been good with vocabulary and grammar, but I never really tried poetry because I thought it was super difficult until I was 9. And I believe I went to a human trafficking event to raise awareness with my parents, and I heard a lot of stories and stuff, and it shocked me, some of the things I heard. It wasn't too graphic because I was a little kid, but the fact that people would get kidnapped and taken from their families and people would do bad stuff to them just terrified me, and I wrote a poem about it, which I have since then lost because my laptop crashed. But I wrote a poem about it, and then that's when I kind of realized I'm not so bad at this. And after that, so I've been writing since I was 9. So since then, I've been experimenting with different styles. I've tried haikus, I've tried odes. I have tried very strict, structured poems, which I'm awful at because I'm more of a fluid, write what I want when I want it kind of person. So yeah, I would say inspiration, like the thing that finally made it all click is what let me know you are meant to be a writer. It was that one push, that one motivation.
Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have questions for Denali? I think we had talked about this before, but I have one more question too about your favorite artists, your favorite spoken word folks, or your favorite poets.
I have a lot, mostly because they're all in different genres. So my favorite poet, hands down, is Edgar Allan Poe. I love sarcasm and dark humor, so his poetry, I find it amusing to read. I would say lyricists. I love Imagine Dragons, and I also love 21 Pilots. I think that those two bands have a lot of really good lines in their songs. It's not just that they're completely awesome, but also that they know how to convey what they're trying to say, and they don't do it in a way that's too confusing, but they do it in a way that demonstrates their artistry and their ability, but you can also kind of track along with what they're saying.
Thank you. It's great. Anyone else have questions? How do you and I've asked this of other like lyricists and songwriters as well, but when do you consider what needs to happen in order for you to consider a poem done?
I would say the answer to that is probably either my poems are never done, or when my dad gets chills up and down his back is when I would say, when he gets goosebumps, I know it's done. I'm like, okay, it's good. It's also, I would consider it done if I give it to 2 or 3 different people to read and they're like, and they'd have nothing else to say. They're like, this, it's just incredibly mind blowing. Like over the summer at the Suicide Peak hike, where a group of hikers were advocating to change the name of Suicide Peak to Heaven's Breath to kind of break that spirit of suicide and depression over Alaska. I shared a poem I wrote called You Don't Have to Be Close, which was a poem that I originally wrote, I think maybe 4 years ago after someone I had known had committed suicide in a tragic way. And I wrote that, and it wasn't done for 4 years until over the summer, and then it was done. And even then, I had to adapt it to that particular circumstance. It couldn't just be something like I had to make it sound a little more uplifting towards the end, even though I had written it in a state of depression and gloom. So your poems are either never done, or when people have nothing else to say, or your writing mentor like gets goosebumps. They're like, wow, this is so amazing. I can't even handle it.
Statement since folks on YouTube wouldn't be able to see this, that there was a statement in the chat box that was talking about family being supportive and part of the process of knowing when you're done. Image of your dad getting chills from work that you've done is very cool, and that you have that sharing capability with your family is very important. Awesome. Do you want to does anyone want to share out anything that they've written? Anyone else on the call? Anything else that you want to share? A poem maybe that you have created either in your time here or another poem that's important to you?
I don't have anything, but just thank you for being here and going through this. Also, hearing your stuff is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll just echo Eva that it was really awesome being here. And I really enjoyed your poetry.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, for these last couple minutes here, I just have a couple more slides to share and encourage folks to attend our next session, which is coming up on Wednesday with Milo Stickel-Frizzell, and he is going to be talking about text-based video game basics and coding, and it's another form of writing or written word, but in the form of video game base. So if you would like to attend that with us, that will be in the afternoon from 5 to 6 p.m. You can register from the Google Forms that we created, which I can drop in the text of the video once we're done here today. And you can also visit our website. If you Google Amplify Youth Voices Alaska, it's a storyboard kind of site and a story map, and you can interact there and see more about the project. If you do want to submit, a call to action to you is to submit your poems, your art. Youth all over Alaska, ages 10 to 25. You can submit anything up to 20 megabytes at DHSS -pit at alaska.gov, or you can ask for an upload link if you have something that's over 20 megabytes, like a video. Submissions containing illegal activity, nudity, hate speech, etc., that we have here on the screen won't be shared or permitted. And some of these we will be using for, some of the ones that are accepted will be used for social media, newsletters, etc., supporting nonprofit partners in our project and in this work. Please do remember to put some hashtags if you do, along with hashtag written word, thanks to Denali today, but hashtag AK Youth Combat COVID, or hashtag Alaskan Youth Resilient, or hashtag AYVA. Finally, too, just again, remember to touch base the emergency mental health counseling, suicide prevention, and give a call to our care line representatives. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, or 66, depending on if it's leap year. Please take care of yourselves, and thanks again to Denali Tshibaka for giving us her whole process and rocking our worlds today. Keep writing and stay safe, everyone.